Welcome to another iShock Gamer's Guide. This video will discuss the basics of taming and upgrading pets and mounts, as well as why you'll want to invest in them right away. I also have several separate videos on the way that will showcase over 250 of the pets, mounts, and their locations. So be sure to check that out as well so you can maximize your pet and mount efficiency. I'm currently playing on the Japanese rebuild version of Bless, so keep in mind most of the mob names you'll see in this video are likely to change for Steam release, but everything from the levels, processes, icons, and locations should remain the same, just in better translation. Okay, let's start with the basics. Almost every single monster, animal, and even some of the humanoids in Bless can be tamed as mounts and pets. You can tell if it's tameable by targeting it and then looking to the left of its health bar. If there's a butterfly, it's tameable as a pet. If there's a wagon wheel, it's tameable as a mount. Pets in Bless are passive companions that give you buffs like extra defense, damage, honor, experience, crafting speeds, and more. The most common questions I get about pets are, do they fight for you? The answer is no. They're passive and only there to give the owner buffs. Do some pets have a better chance of gaining specific skills? The answer is no. They all pull from the same skill pool specific to that tier. Can pets loot for you? Yes, there's a pet skill called Auto Loot that can learn at tier 2 or 3. Looting has no cooldown. Keep in mind pets only get one skill for each upgraded tier, and at the top tier 4 legendary you'll have 3 skills, so you wouldn't want something like Auto Loot or Crafting taking up a slot on your PvP pet. Expect to have multiple pets for different situations. Pets and mounts both have a stamina bar that they spend as a resource. Pets drain stamina and gain experience just from being out. Mounts only drain stamina and gain experience when you're moving on them or using active abilities. Mounts also get skills to boost their potential like dash, nighttime speed boost, less stamina consumption, and even a possible 12-second burst of flight at legendary status. The number one question I get for mounts is, are there mounts that can fly full time? Yes, there are, but they're very hard to get, and the very few I've seen from boss drops and higher tier PvP rewards expire after 7 days. They are not permanent and very, very uncommon. We'll revisit the detailed list of skills for both pets and mounts later. Two more quick notes I wanted to add are that some pets can evolve to a different look at legendary, and also most pets and mounts will remain the same size after taming as previous. So if it's a huge mammoth, it's going to stay a huge mammoth, and if it's a tiny mouse, it's going to stay a tiny mouse. One more quick note. There's a Taming Proficiency that levels up as you tame and enhance more pets and mounts. You will start with a maximum of 40 companions. At the first level up, that goes up to 70, and eventually I believe the maximum is 300 companions at God tier. Now that you understand what they're for, let's talk about taming them. First thing you'll need are Taming Scrolls. There are currently 2 different tiers of craftable Taming Scrolls. Intermediate Taming Scroll for pets and mounts up to level 35, and Advanced Taming Scrolls for pets and mounts up to the current max level of 45. The new player box in Japan gives some beginner scrolls as well that tame pets and mounts under level 15. If these aren't in the Steam release, then to start you can either craft them, which is very simple, or you can buy them off the marketplace. If you decide to craft your own, you'll need a character with enchanting as a profession. Professions have stat bonuses in Bless, and player-to-player trading is disabled. So if your main is Armorsmith or Jewel Crafting, you may have to have an enchanting alt to craft them and then mail them to your main. Side note, you can only mail 2 letters between your main and alts, and each letter can have 5 items or stacks of items attached. You'll need to accept the items and delete the old mail before you'll be able to send more between alts. Scrolls are crafted by using Sailor Moonlight powder you get from disenchanting armor, weapons, and runes, combined with 2 more materials you can buy from the crafting vendor: Potion of Bondage and Paper. These names might change for Steam release, but the procedure should remain the same. Now that we have our scrolls, let's get to taming. In order to tame, you need to put the Taming Scrolls on your hotbar. It can go on any of the F1 to F8 buttons above your primary skill hotbar. You can click them out of your inventory, but if you make a mistake, it'll cancel the minigame and waste a scroll. Approach the mob you want to tame and target it, then hit your scroll button. It will start a minigame of a bar racing back and forth. You need to hit spacebar inside the window 4 times before the time limit expires. If you miss one, it's fine. You only lose the time it takes for it to pause and then continue. There is some room for error. Occasionally you'll find one that goes very fast with a smaller window and requires 5 successful hits instead of 4. From what I've seen, if you win this one, it will start at level 10 so you can enhance it right away. I also recently noticed if you successfully tame one of these faster 5-hit pets, you get an advanced pet enema. I believe if you combine 10 of these together, you get a pet RNG box that gives you a random pet. I believe there's also a mount version. Once you've tamed a few pets, it's time to start grading them up from the common green to rare blue quality so you can get some passive skills. At green quality, the pet or mount needs to be level 10 to start grading up. If you sacrifice the same type of animal, it'll give you a base success rate of 15%, and each time you fail, it will add a small bonus to that. Pets and mounts have a random number of remaining upgrade attempts between 5 and 10 from what I've seen after tame. If you run out of chances, you can no longer upgrade that pet or mount. You can either use it to enchant, aka level up another pet, or you can sacrifice it as a grade up material to get a different pet to blue. Once you get to rare blue quality, the pet or mount needs to reach level 30 to try for epic, and will require the same quality level as a sacrifice. Green for green, blue for blue, epic for epic. So you'll likely need hundreds of the same pet or mount to get up to the legendary tier. With a crazy RNG carry, it is possible to get it with far less, just very, very unlikely, especially with all the RNG related to the skills on top of the levels. Japan has an item in the cash shop to re-roll pet and mount skills. We're not sure if this will be an NA, as many would classify this under pay to win category because the stats do directly affect your player for PvP and PvE. NeoWiz has said Bless will not be pay to win, but everyone has different definitions on what exactly that is, so we'll have to wait and see if it's there on launch. If you're still watching this video, it means you're probably one of the elite min-maxers and you want to see some numbers and data for skills so you can build a beastly buff pet or a mount. So let's take a look at the list of skills and values available for both pets and mounts. First, let's take a look at the pet skills. For Tier 2 and Tier 3, pets pull from the same group of skills. Let's go over them all now. The first skill is Hunting Experience, which is experience gained from killing mobs or elites. The first tier of it is 42.1%. The second tier of it is 76.1%, the blue tier. And then the epic tier is 154.7% experience bonus. Next skill is Money Increase from killing mobs. The first tier is 42.1%, the second tier is 76.1%, and the third tier is 154.7%. The next skill is PvP experience gain, which I believe translates to honor. The first tier is 42.1%, the second tier is 76.1%, and the third tier is 154.7%. The next skill is Start the Adventure, lower. This is adventure points gained from instances and hunting quests and so on. The first tier is a 6.75% increase, the second tier is an 8.07% increase, and the third tier is a 10% increase. The next skill is Force is Growing. This is attack power increase. The first tier of this is an attack power increase by 18. The second tier is an attack power increase of 28, and the third tier is an attack power increase of 48. The next skill is Magic Damage, an increase of 18 spell power. The tier 2 is an increase of 28 spell power, and the third tier is an increase of 48 spell power. The next skill is called Stronger, which is Defense. 154 physical armor and 44 magic armor for the tier 1. 224 physical armor and 64 magic armor for tier 2. 336 physical armor and 96 magical armor for tier 3. The next skill is Guild Experience. Guild Experience gained by 10%. Guild Experience gained by 20% for tier 2. And Guild Experience increased by 50% for tier 3. The next skill is Friends of the Wind Spirit. Backwards movement speed increased by 10%. This is really nice for ranged DPS. Next, tier 2 is 20% movement speed backwards. And the third tier is an increased movement speed backwards by 50%. The next skill is Mermaid Friend. Swimming speed increased by 10%, tier 1. Swimming speed increased by 20% for tier 2. And swimming speed increased by 50% for tier 3. Next up is Joy of the Creator, tier 1. This is production rate increased by 5%. Tier 2 is production rate increased by 7%. Tier 3 is production rate increased by 10%. The next one is Pleasure of Collector. Collecting speed increased by 5%. This is Gathering. Gathering speed increased by 7% and gathering speed increased by 10%. The next one is the Collected Tide Tout, which is Gathering Experience increased by 10%. Gathering Experience increased by 50% at tier 2, and Gathering Experience increased by 30% at tier 3. Next up is Craft Assistant, which is Crafting Experience increased by 10%. Crafting Experience increased by 15% for tier 2, and Crafting Experience increased by 30% from tier 3. Next we have Fast Growth, which is just 20% increase in pet experience gained. And the last one is Auto Loot. Acquires items not yet looted within 30 meters, needs a free loot slot and inventory to obtain. So as long as you have inventory spaces, it'll loot everything within 30 meters on no cooldown. The translations on the legendary pet skills are rough. I reached out to some people in the Blessed Discord to help me translate the Japanese versions. Shout out to Loki Reborn for helping with the translations. Here's what we came up with for the legendary skills. First skill is Blood Voracious. The fatigue of the registered pet will recover 40 points per second. This effect does not apply to the pets that are recalled. Firefighting. For 5 seconds, you will inflict 20% additional damage. This effect cannot occur more than once every 30 seconds. Supply Search. Basically, this will periodically give you food and potions that are useful for combat. This one we couldn't get a name on, but we believe it is a reactive shield. If you're hit for more than 7% of your hit points, a reflection barrier will be generated for 10 seconds that stuns anyone who attacks it. And the last one is Blessed Box. Upon receipt of the mana from Blessing Box, hit point was recovered by 1500 for 10 seconds. Increased attack power and spell power by 10%. Next, let's take a look at mounts. First, we're going to go over the second and third tier of skills available that pull from the same pool, and then we'll take a look at the legendary skills after. For the second and third tiers, the first one we've got is movement speed increase. This is a full-time movement speed increase. The first tier is 10%, second tier is 20%, third tier is 40%. The next skill we have is reduced fatigue consumption. The first one is 5% less from summoning and 10% less from movement. Then 10% from summoning and 20% from movement, and 20% from summoning and 50% from movement for the third tier. The next skill is fatigue recovery, increasing amount. Looks like when the pet is away and sleeping, I'm guessing is that icon. It looks like when you put the mount away, you gain 200 fatigue, and it'll gain 10% more at tier 1, 20% more in 350 at 2, and 50% increased fatigue recovery and instant of 600 at tier 3. The next one is boarding time reduction, so the amount of time it takes you to mount up. The first tier is 30% faster, the second tier is 50% faster, and the third tier is 100% faster. Next ability is streaking, lower. This is a 5-second speed boost. So the first tier is 20% for 5 seconds, the second tier is 30% for 5 seconds, and the third tier is 60% for 5 seconds. The next skill is hiding, range of perception being reduced to 30%, instead 40.1% reduced movement speed for 5 seconds. Then range of perception being reduced to 50%, instead 30.6% reduced movement speed for 5 seconds. And range of perception being increased to 80%, instead movement speed reduced by 15% for 5 seconds. The next one is protected, lower. Reduction of 10% off chance when hit. I believe what this means is reduce the chance to be dismounted by 10% when hit. Next tier is reduced by 20%, and the third tier is reduced by 50%. The next skill is climbing. This allows you to climb 10% steeper angles, tier 2 for 20% steeper angles, and tier 3 for 40% steeper angles. The next ability is jump. Increase the jump height of 162.07% for tier 1. For tier 2, it's 246.55%, and for tier 3, it is 381.72%. The next skill is Nocturnal. 40% faster movement speed at night. Tier 2 is 50% faster movement speed at night, and Tier 3 is 70% faster movement speed at night. The next skill is Escape. Movement speed is increased by 40% for 2 seconds when shot. Tier 2 is 50% for 2 seconds when shot, and Tier 3 is 70% for 2 seconds while shot. And the last skill is Obtain increased experience by 20% for the mount. So the mount will just level up 20% faster, essentially. Lastly, let's take a look at the legendary skills. We've got Subtlety. Enemy does he look, but you do not recognize. I guess we're saying it's some form of stealth or whatnot. The next one is Impregnable Defense. Even if the attack does not get off the ride. Impregnable Defense, I believe, stops you from being dismounted from being shot. Stamina Enhancer. All attributes of the vehicle is increased by a certain value, jumping, climbing, etc. So everything it can do, jump, speed, climb, everything is increased by some percentage. Advance. On boarding, increased by 30% movement speed of your allies and yourself, immune to all crowd control effects, and this attribute control effect. This effect cannot occur more than once every 60 seconds, so an ability that allows you to basically like charge in without being CC'd for you and your allies. Shield creates a shield that absorbs a certain amount of damage for 5 seconds. When the shield is released, the movement speed of the vehicle rises to 50% for 5 seconds, so a shield that gives you a speed boost when the shield is broken or ends. Battle flag. So I guess it's a battle flag that gives you 20% reduction in the amount of spell damage you take. So I guess it's a defensive battle flag buff. Again, a lot of these translations are rough, so we may have to revisit these come Steam launch. Roar. Given the fear effect, all enemies within a 10-meter radius. So this is a 10-meter fear, and the target takes additional damage potentially. Lasts for 3 seconds. So roar appears to be a 10-meter radius sphere that lasts for 3 seconds. And the last one is a flight buff. Rides fairy can fly faster for 12 seconds. The non-flying area cannot be used. So the last one is a flight that allows you to take flight for 12 seconds. There's like a minute or 2-minute cooldown on it, I believe. And there's certain areas where you never can fly, regardless of having this or not. And that's going to wrap up the pet and mount skills. There's a lot of information packed into this video, so don't be afraid to ask questions in the comments. Also, be sure to check out my pet and mount world tour videos that showcase over 200 of the pets and mounts you can make your own and bless. Thanks for watching. Check out all my links in the description. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe so you can be the first to see new bless guides and PvP videos I have in the works. You can also follow me at twitch.tv/iShockGamers, where I stream live daily, as well as follow me on Twitter and Facebook at iShockGamers. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or join my Discord, where we can have tons of guides and you can chat with me one-on-one. There'll be a link in the description. Lastly, if you want to support iShockGamers, check out my Patreon. I have some fun rewards and exciting goals to help other gamers, talent, and creators grow.